I knew that people were having issues being able to come up with, hey, this is my focus right now, because that changes. But being able to look at things in a moment, as Marie Kondo would say, like, does that spark joy? Or is that something you really want to do? And it might be something that you really want to do, but it might not be aligned with what your priority is right now.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Augustino. As real estate entrepreneurs, we love what we do. And when we're creating our own business, producing what we want, when we want it, working on our own terms, it's always a lot of fun. However, it's very different than typical 9 to 5 days. Entrepreneurs are always on the clock, we're always working. And this can sometimes lead to a loss of productivity or even burnout. Now, today's guest understands this. Now, she is an Emmy-award winning television producer for nearly 20 years, and she has produced some health, wellness, and lifestyle segments in the top range of experts, including JJ Virgin, Jillian Michaels, and Deepak Chopra. Now, she has a strong belief in the importance of intentionality and knowing your why and having a plan to achieve your goals. Now, most recently, she served as the senior health producer for Fox News in New York City and she's done it for more than a decade. Now, finally, she is the author of the best-selling book, Listful Things, Using Lists to Be More Productive, Highly Successful, and Less Stressed, which has been translated into 12 languages. So definitely check that book out. All right. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Paula Rizzo to the show. Paula, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk productivity and lists and getting things done.
Yes, excellent. Been looking forward to this for a while. Now, guys, if you like what Paula has to say, you can reach her via our contact page at paularizzo.com. Okay, Paula, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit more about your journey and how you got started in all this. It's very fascinating.
Sure. I've been a journalist for a very long time, and I think that comes from my curiosity as a person. I'm always curious about all different kinds of things, and so that has been my role as a journalist in television news, to find out what the stories are, to see what's most important, and to tell the audience about that. So as you said, I did that for close to 20 years. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm off on my own as an author and speaker and media trainer. So I help people who want to be better on camera and engage media, produce their own videos. And as you know, video is a big thing now. It's not going anywhere. Everybody is connecting via video these days. So it's been very, very important. But my role as a TV producer really taught me about deadlines. How to get things done in a really short amount of time, how to be most efficient, and how to be intentional with the things that I put on my to-do list.
Right. And I think that also includes what not to do as well, because I think that for many people, when we coach people and we're trying to help people get into the real estate business, for instance, I find that they're trying to chase so many rabbits. That old saying there, you chase so many rabbits, you get none, that kind of thing. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing, right? You have to know what to take on and what not to take on, what segment to cover, what not to cover, and in what length of time, right? And I think the ability to say no is just as important as saying yes. Would you say that's right?
Oh, for sure. And people have a very skewed sense of timing. And this is what I've found a lot. Most people don't think in seconds. As a TV producer, I know exactly how long 30 seconds is. I know how long a minute is. People don't think that way, but I encourage you to try, even in your everyday life. Time yourself getting ready in the morning. Time how long it takes you to eat breakfast. So then okay, how much time do I actually have to do this task versus what do I think? And you think, oh, it'll take 5 minutes. And you're still sitting there 15 minutes later. So having that relationship with time is really important, because then you know exactly what can and can't get done.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to defining the why, I guess the overarching thing that many people probably missed in the very first time anyway, I mean, I know I did, was defining the why is in terms of, why am I going to put myself through all this hell to reach this goal? I find that for many folks, they have a hard time defining that, and do you have any recommendations? How do you define that, or how have you helped other people do that?
Prioritizing is very difficult for many, many people. And, my second book, Listful Living, is a book that I wrote because, I I knew that people were having issues being able to come up with, hey, this is my focus right now, because that changes. But being able to look at things in a moment, as Marie Kondo would say, like, does that spark joy? Or is that something you really want to do? And it might be something that you really want to do, but it might not be aligned with what your priority is right now. About a year after my first book, Listful Thinking, came out, my appendix burst, which is very, very dramatic. And it's a very dramatic, and it was very dangerous. I mean, I could have died. But coming out of that experience, I was very intentional about what I let back onto my to-do list. Because when that happened, everything came off the list. Every single thing. And guess what? The world still spun and things still got done. It just wasn't done by me. And that was okay, But you have to sort of take your ego out of things sometimes too, to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't need to be the person who does this one thing, or I don't need to go to that event. They don't need me. It could be someone else. So to be able to look at it and say, okay, what is my main priority right now? In that moment when I was getting better, it was my health. So anything that was not aligned with me feeling better and getting better and doing that was not on the list. I was able to very clearly say no. We don't usually have things like that happen to us that are so crystal clear. Like, you literally can't do anything else. So that's why you say no. But I want people to start thinking in that way, to think, okay, can I be very strategic about my goals in that way? And to say, look, maybe your priority is sleep. Getting better sleep at night. Then if you're doing that, you're not going to say yes to these networking events that are in the evening, because you have to get some sleep. So to be able to really put those two things together and be really clear about it is key.
But it also sounds like you've also, I'm going to use the air quotes here, outsourced some of these other functions as well, right? So things can continue working if you're not available because you're taking care of yourself, right?
Oh, absolutely. You have to, especially as business owners, we have to be able to have the business run even without us. Yes, you're a major part of it, but to know that everybody knows what's happening when, and you can take things off your plate at a moment's notice, that infrastructure is just, it's really priceless. And at the time, I was working full-time as a senior health producer at Fox News, and I was also running my website at the time, listproducer.com, where I was sharing all kinds of productivity, tips and tricks and things like that. And I remember laying in the hospital, and I had a woman who was helping me with my blog at the time. And she's like, well, the blog's still ready to go. Do you want me to send it out? Like, as I'm like in the bed, I was like, yeah, I guess. The blog's ready. Send it out. Like, we worked on it. You might as well. But so it's that kind of, forward thinking that will help you to be able to consistently do things. And for me, I've been writing that blog for 10 years now. And it's the only way I was able to do it was with somebody else's help, to be able to keep me accountable and show up and say, hey, you want to send it out every Monday? Here's what has to happen to do that.
Right. And I think that, it's funny, the accountability stuff is so big. Hey, that's why I do CrossFit every day. I go there because the coach always pushed me harder to meet the times and try to do as many burpees as I possibly can, which I don't think anybody likes those. Really. No. But that's funny. Now, in terms of trying to manage some of the things that you have in your life, I know that you're really big on lists, right? And defining up front the categories as well as the priorities, these different things. So for someone that's never done it before, right, that's never really had that kind of focus and been able to sit down and do that priority, how do you help people do that? Because I know you have a couple of websites that you already mentioned. One, I think, was Listful List. There's also Listful Living. There's some other great stuff that you have out there. How do you do that for these folks?
Yeah, sure. It's my books, Listful Thinking, Listful Living. And also, I always tell people to make daily lists, something that I talk about in my first book. I find that to be the most, attainable, because you really can look at this finite amount of time and say, what are the things that I have the time and the resources to do today? So not what is everything I wish I could do that would make, my life great. This to-do list is not a bucket list. This to-do list is not a long-term goal list. It's a one-time deal, right? Every night before I leave my desk, both when I was a TV producer and now that I work for myself, I make a list. I make a list of everything that I have to do the next day, but that I have the time and I have the resources to do tomorrow. And that's knowing yourself, knowing, okay, what are those things that I can actually do? And, putting something like write book on that list is not helpful because you'll never write a book in one day. So what is the tiny piece of that you can put on that list that will get you closer to that goal? So that's where I think people kind of turn down the wrong lane as far as it goes with lists because they're not specific enough. You have to be very specific. If you're writing emails, write down who you're writing those emails to. Exactly why you're writing that email. If you have to go pick something up at the store, what exactly? Not just go to store because you'll get distracted. It happens all the time. And, this happens, as a TV producer, I would go out in the field and interview people. And I always had a list of questions. I always had a list of, the shots that I needed to get before I went back to the studio. And it's not that I didn't know, obviously I've been doing this for a very long time, but distractions pop up and things happen that throw you off course. So you do need to have sort of that central roadmap to pull you back in. So I would say try the daily to-do list. Do it at night, like right before you leave your desk. I find it to be a really nice shutdown activity for the end of the day, because otherwise you just keep working. And that's something that, we've all learned, throughout the pandemic and working from home. You can just keep working because you're there, because your computer's in front of you. So to use this as sort of your shutdown mode, and I find it to be really effective.
Yeah, I think the one thing I found when I'm coaching my students, I do something a little different where we actually have our affirmations, right? We write down our affirmations. I usually do it at the beginning of the year, or just before the beginning of the year. I'll sit down and try to think, what do I want my next year to look like?
Sure.
And then I write out the affirmations every day. And I notice that, it takes work to figure that out. It even takes work to sit down, even though you're usually just writing down the same stuff,
Yeah.
But it sometimes you forget. Sometimes you don't wanna. There's that too. You don't feel like it, but you really have to push yourself. But for those people that have never done it before, I'm sure there's a lot of those folks because we're not taught this stuff in school. Like never has, and my teachers ever said, "Oh no, you need to create a list and
Sure.
do it every single day." I wish they would have. But for those folks that have never done it, what sort of things do you recommend that they do? Like how should they start, especially for those ones that have never done it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also noticing yourself and noticing how you work best. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? When are you most productive in the day? Before you start changing anything, start noticing yourself. Start seeing, when am I more fired up to talk to people or have in-person meetings or have Zoom meetings or, whatever it is. When do I like to do that? So for me specifically, I'm not a morning person. I don't like to do anything in the morning. I'll get up, I'll do, some yoga, I'll meditate, I'll drink some tea, I'll read the newspaper. Like that's a good morning for me. I don't like to jump on the phone or start talking to people or doing things like that's just not how I'm wired. So I intentionally set up my day to start a little bit later. I really, don't do my first call till 11:30, in the morning. And then from there, I go for the rest of the afternoon. I find that that's my best productivity style. And I talk about that a lot in my book, Listful Living. And being able to really, tap into that and say, okay, well, I know I'm better at writing in the morning, let's just say. I'm going to put those tasks on my list in the morning. So even going a step further and scheduling this a little bit to be able to say, okay, what do I want to do before lunch? What do I want to do after lunch? And then that way you can start to sort of see, how do I work best? I want you to set yourself up for optimal success. So don't be doing things at times when you're going to be grumpy or angry or whatever. You're not going to get your best work out there.
Yeah, no, I think that part is huge. I usually do mine after I come back from the gym, a cup of coffee, relaxed. No one's bothering me. Phone's not ringing. And I guess the evening is also a great time to do it because it's the same sort of thing. Usually your phone's not ringing and it's things are fairly tranquil. I guess it depends on the person and what kind of life they're living, with
totally
kids and whatnot too.
Yeah, it's true. But even, distractions are going to happen to everybody.
Yeah.
But it's, it's one of those things where I also teach people to pause. Instead of jumping in and getting distracted right away, pause and then write down what you were in the middle of doing. I call it a distraction placeholder. And I put it on my list. And, like, let's say I was in the middle of writing you an email. So there I am writing you an email, and then my phone rings or something happens. So before I answer the phone, I write down that I was in the middle of writing you an email, because it takes 23 minutes to get restarted on a project once you get diverted off of it. That's a lot of time to waste, because, we hang up the phone, you come back to your computer, 3 more emails have come in, and maybe you jump on social media for a second. You're like, oh, let me just see how so-and-so's trip was or whatever, and then you're down the rabbit hole and you forget what you were working on. And it's just like, wasted time. So to be able to sort of pause yourself and then write it down is really, really helpful.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think that that's one thing social media has created some huge time wasters for everybody. Especially because you hit Facebook, next thing you know, you check out someone's vacation, you see some baby pictures, next thing you know, you've wasted an hour just scrolling through stuff. And it's a total waste of time. So I mean, I actually turned off all my notifications, so I don't even get notified whenever somebody sends them a message. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, we talked a little bit about burnout in the green room. And for those folks that are out there right now, maybe they're pushing hard. I mean, I know I am, and we accomplished a lot of stuff. We spent, I think by the end of this year, I probably would have spent about $250 million on assets and asset acquisitions. It's going to be crazy, right? And we did that over like a 3-year period. It's fairly short, right? And it's going to be nuts. But at the same time, too, it also leads to burnout, I think, and not burnout from the sense that you're just exhausted from, you hate everything. It's more like you just want to take a break or something like that. I mean, I guess, what do you find from numerous people you talk to when people do experience that burnout? Like, first off, what do you think the cause is, and what do you think the remedy is for something like that?
I mean, it's a real thing. The World Health Organization says that burnout syndrome is real. It affects your body, mind, soul. Think about it. It's like running a computer all day, every day, and never allowing it to just cool down, to give it a break. It's the same thing with us. You can't go, and then not let yourself rest. There's a woman who I've interviewed many times through the years, and in both my books. Her name is Heidi Hanna. And she's a stress expert. And, she says stress is actually very good for you, because it does get you motivated, and it does get you out there to go do the thing that you need to do. If you're doing a speaking engagement, it's a little scary right in the beginning. You get out there and your body is stressed. It just is. That's what it, that's how it operates. If you don't give yourself the time to then cool down afterwards, that's where you start to get into trouble, because then you get into that chronic stress mode where it keeps happening and you never give yourself that rest. But people give, self-care is a big word now. Everybody talks about self-care and giving yourself time. I think it's kind of overused, and people look at it the wrong way, because they think, oh, it has to be a week-long vacation, or it has to be a 2-hour massage. And not exactly, although those things are fantastic and you should definitely do them if you can. But there are other ways for you to help yourself throughout the day, giving yourself a lunch break, starting your day the way that you'd like to start it, the way that I do. I don't get on the phone right away. That for me is like a kindness that I do to myself so that I don't burn out. Being able to know how many video calls can I actually do in one day without burning out. And, that's something that I had to learn when I first started working for myself about 4 years ago. I did, I think, 7 or 8 video calls in one day. And I was like, I don't know who I talked to. I don't know what I said. I need to take a nap. I'm exhausted. That was the most unproductive day I have ever had, because you think more is better, and it's not. It really isn't. So now I try to do at most 3 video calls, because, I'm working with clients. I'm training them on how to be better on camera. It takes a lot of, physical exertion to do that. And hopefully you're engaged with whoever you're talking to. I do a lot of interviews, obviously. So I cut it off if I can at 3. That's my limit. And that, again, is something that I do to avoid burnout. There's certain days that I do certain things. Mondays, I don't do meetings. Fridays, I reserve for writing. So I'm in a solitary mode most of the time. So being able to set up your schedule in a way is also a really, really great way to give yourself some self-care.
Excellent. I mean, and I think part of it, you mentioned already, you already touched on it, organizing your time, organizing certain days to do certain things. as far as like, when do you do your interviews? When do you do your discussions? When do you coach your potential students? Or when do you go out and sell? All these different things. I mean, many people just live from day to day to day. And I will say this, when I actually, at the very beginning of my, I guess, rejuvenated career in real estate, I did just that. I sat down. I actually designated certain days to do certain things.
Smart.
Right? Like this is a day to go and meet people, because meeting people in this business is everything. You have to go raise capital. This is part of the deal. You got to do that. Or you're going to go look at deals on this day. You're going to talk to brokers on this day, or record podcasts on that day. And it's funny, most people, again, similar with I mentioned earlier, and as far as education is concerned, this stuff was not really told to us, when we were growing up, to segment out your day. It's super, super important. I just stumbled on it. I didn't really, for me, it just made sense at the time. But I think that your material is probably going to be a lot more precise than just trying to come up with a day or whatever, or half a day to do X, Y, Z. I think your material is probably going to be a lot more condensed and concentrated, I would imagine, right?
Well, it's also knowing yourself and knowing, like, what do you want? How do you want to do this? As entrepreneurs, we're able to design our day however we want, so why not do that, as opposed to what you do in corporate, which is like, okay, what am I doing today? Where am I going? And then you just follow the herd wherever it goes. But this way you can be much more intentional and batch your time, so you're more efficient, that okay, Thursdays is for meetings and that's what I'm doing. And it's also helpful to see and look at your schedule and say, oh, okay, I have 3 meetings already. I can't do any more meetings on that day. So we're going to have to bump it to the next week. And that's okay to be able to push things off, because the tendency is, oh, let's get it in. And then you're burnt out. So this is a good way to also train yourself not to do too much. If you think about it, look, if you go to your dentist and you say, hey, I need an appointment, what do you got? And he's like, well, we've got 3:00, or we've got 2 weeks from now, and you can't do the 3:00. All right, so I'll do 2 weeks from now. He's not opening up his entire calendar and saying, you want to come at 7:30, I can probably move this, I can probably do that. No, it's very inefficient to do that. So why do we do that with our time? We shouldn't. We should say, hey, here's our fixed time. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And as entrepreneurs, it's hard too, because you think, oh, I'll miss out on the deal. I'll miss out on that person. I have to see them today. It's very, very urgent. Changing your mindset will really, really help, because if it's meant to be, it'll work out. And that's what I've learned. And I've had to, remind myself time and time again as an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean because it's happening now that it's going to, the deal's going to go through or whatever it is. It could be just as good in a month.
That's right. That's right. And, I think just as important as to scheduling and breaking up your time is also who to say no to. Because I'll tell you what, Paula, I get hit up all day long from all different kinds of people that want to sell me stuff that I don't need.
Sure.
Or they're trying to impose their will on scheduling, taking my time to schedule my time, basically, right? They're doing it for me. That's my favorite. Or they'll just outright call you. And I think that's also important too, is either blocking those sorts of people, or guarding your time away from those type of time burglars, And I mean, I'm not saying like, hey, listen, part of it is I understand the importance of selling and all that stuff. But I mean, there's so many of them.
That's why focus is so important. Is this taking me away from the thing that I actually have to do? Having gatekeepers, having a team, having, outsource that stuff to be able to have somebody else vet it. Is this something that you should even care about? Is this legit? Or is this just some, weirdo on LinkedIn who's reaching out to you, Right. Speaking of LinkedIn, I actually have a course on LinkedIn about how to set boundaries and how to say no, because people do have such a hard time with it. And I've done several courses with LinkedIn Learning to be able to help people be more efficient with their list making, setting up their remote office. And now also I have one about how to do hybrid work, because some people are working half their time at home and half their time in the office. How do you manage that in a very productive way? So I dive into that there.
Excellent. So are you using tools within LinkedIn then, or are these separate tools outside of LinkedIn when you're training that stuff?
Yeah, the course is through LinkedIn Learning. So if you're a premium member of LinkedIn, you get access to it. A lot of employers also, have this is a perk for their employees that they have LinkedIn Learning for you. You may not even know that it's one of the perks, so you should ask to say, hey, do we have access to this? Because there's a huge library. I mean, there's so many things on there that you can learn, not only, productivity skills, but also if you want to learn how to edit a video or, I don't know, code a website, like you can learn all of that stuff.
Yeah. And see, that part's huge because in our space, most of the investors that we're approaching, they're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right. They're on LinkedIn. And I think, though, approaching those people the right way, you can actually get their attention, which, again, I get those people all the time, too. And, they're just doing their thing. I get it.
Mm-hmm, totally. Right. They're checking it off the list. They had to do it for that day.
Right. But I think there's more efficient ways of hitting people up and offering value as opposed to just sending them a package. That's not only the wrong way, it's also illegal, by the way, guys. So don't do that.
Yeah. It's very, very true. I mean, look, there's, this goes back to my TV days of like, how do you want to be pitched? Understanding and knowing who it is that you're talking to, like who's your audience? Why would they need this? What is the purpose of this for them? Not for you, So I think a lot of people go into it in the wrong way when they start to cold pitch people.
Right. So, Paula, we covered a lot of stuff here today. For someone that's listening right now, maybe they're not really sure what to do with their life, or maybe they're on the verge of burnout, or maybe even they can't just get organized. What sort of bulletproof advice would you offer to them?
I have some advice that Oprah Winfrey has given time and time again, which I think she stole from Maya Angelou, if we're going to be honest, but it's okay. They're both fantastic. And the quote is, "You become what you believe." And I have come back to that time and time again in my life to be able to reground myself and say, hey, what you want, you can actually have happen. But it works the other way too. If you feel like, oh, I'm so scattered, oh, I'm so stressed out, oh, I can never get my life in order, that's what's going to continue. You perpetuate that. So to be able to come away from that and say, I believe that I can be more organized. I believe that I don't have to feel so tired at the end of the day. Those are really positive spins on what you might be telling yourself. So to switch the mindset there a little bit, because you truly do become what you believe. You just have to start believing a more positive, outlook to be able to get yourself there.
Yeah, it was Maya Angelou, by the way, because that was one of those things that I applied in my life to hit my goals. And so far, I've done every single thing I told myself I would do. It's amazing stuff. I mean, it's just a little quote, but there's so much truth in it.
It works.
So much truth. Yeah. And I guess you also have some great information on listfulliving.com. You mentioned that website. Do you have any other sites that people should check out?
Yeah, if you go to paularizzo.com/lists, I have a list making starter kit. So for those of you who are like, hey, I need to get started being organized, you can grab that kit. And I share all kinds of tips and tricks on how to be more efficient and effective. And, we can keep in touch there. Check me out on LinkedIn. And I'd love to be in touch with all of you.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Paula, she's always open to hearing from you. Check out her website, paularizzo.com. Hope you got some insight on how to increase your productivity and build a life that you want on your own terms. Thanks so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. See you on the next one. Take care.
Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.